Hello, let's try this again. Happy Monday, everybody. We're just going for Michali to join and some of you to show up. And let's see if we hear Michali. Hey, Michali, I see you. 1 second.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, much better.
Yay!
I hear you.
All right, let me just fix the volume on my end. Okay.
Yeah, my
Yay.
volume was on like blast. Hi, so good to see you again.
So good to see you too. Happy Monday with the clocks changed and all.
Happy Monday. Oh my goodness. No wonder I'm less tired. I'm so tired. I'm like, is it because I was sick? Is it because I forgot about the clocks. Now
Oh
another
my
excuse
goodness.
for being totally out of it. Okay, amazing.
Yes, you definitely. Well, so you have so many excuses, but at the end of the day, you don't need an excuse. You could just be out of
I
it.
know.
But it
I'm
happens to be. There's a lot of things on top of that. There's just,
I should practice like not needing excuses for being out of it. It would be a good exercise for this week.
yeah. I totally get, like, I feel like, I mean, this is such a tangent, but I feel like so many times, and I'm like this too, like,
Yeah.
I'm always like looking for an excuse to validate how I feel.
Yeah.
And I don't need it. I can just be like, "No, this is,
Yeah.
but it happens to be, there are a lot of really good excuses here.
Exactly. Thank you.
So better.
Anyways, amazing to see you again. And let's hit the question that we have. I
Yeah.
purposely picked a question that has to do with Pesach. I'm going to keep trying to do that till Pesach because I feel like people want to hear about that and need the support. So let's hit it. Yeah.
Okay. So the question is how to deal with family coming for Pesach into your home, in parentheses, private space, and keeping a smile on. Smiley face. I love that there was like a smiley face emoji after that.
Yeah.
All right. Should I dive in, or do you want to dive in?
Please, yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So I just want to, speaking validating, I just really want to validate that this is really, really hard. I think the first, like everyone is different. And so one of the things that I want to just really stress here is do not look at your next door neighbors or your family or anyone else who seems to be, having a quote unquote easier time hosting. I think that some people love hosting and or have the space for it or don't need a lot of personal like time for themselves and stuff like that. And some people are not as much like that, and that's okay. So that would be like first and foremost what I want to say with that. The second thing is I think, one of the issues here when we start getting anxious about sharing our space is feeling like we're trapped. Right? Like when you actually think about like what does your space do for you? And what are you scared you would not have? Oftentimes I hear it's like, I'm going to be trapped and I have no way out and I'm just stuck with people and I can't breathe, right? So I think the first step would really just be to plan your escape routes, right? Like getting outside. Thank God Pesach is during the spring and it's nice weather, right? Chag Aviv. And I think getting outside, getting fresh air, going for walks, if you can't even power walks, get some of your anger out, that would be amazing. Designating alone time and having a conversation with your family about it. Like, these are my designated alone times. Making your room a real sanctuary. So making sure that you prioritize, spending time making sure that your room feels like a really good escape place for you. And then also, of course, like when Yom Tov is over, like getting in your car and driving by yourself, like just creating space to be by yourself.
Yeah,
I think that's like step number one. Step number two is like sometimes people have boundary issues and then conversations need to be had, and that could probably be a separate topic. But the person I'm speaking to here is someone who does not deal with guests who have boundary issues. It's a totally different topic to deal with guests who do have boundary issues.
Yeah.
And then give yourself a big grace period. Like, it's okay if like other things are not done fancy or whatever. Like, if this is going to take energy from you, then understand that you have a limited amount of energy and some of it's going to go to making sure that you feel like you create a sense of space for yourself.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And I think that like whether guests have boundary issues or not, I think that like sometimes people, like, it might not be a boundary issue. It just might be that you have to like be proactive about what you need for your boundaries. And that might be communicating it with your guests or just communicating it with yourself. Like you said, like having your escape routes, like knowing that, like, you know what, after every meal, I'm going to take a 10-minute walk by myself because that's going to be my unwind time. I love that. For some reason, I had the sense that the questioner was like a younger person who's having like a lot of like married siblings. I completely like I fabricate these stories in my mind when I read these questions. So that's just like
right.
And you're addressing it more like as an adult. So like I have no clue, honestly. Like you could be 100% correct and I could be 100% wrong. But I do that we have a lot of younger followers. So I'm thinking that like if that's the case and if this is somebody that's younger, I think a lot of what we said applies. The only thing that stuck out to me that maybe didn't apply is that, let's say, if you're maybe sharing your room with nieces and nephews and you don't have that personal space, but then there's still like, you know, perhaps there's still something that you can do to like, even within your room, like be like, you know, I'm fine sharing it, you know, but like these hours I need my room by myself. Something like that, like communicating that. Taking a walk, I think still applies. Having like even another space in your house that maybe it's like this room that nobody likes, but like you make it into the room that you're going to go to and it's going to be your safe space. And communicating your boundaries, I think is like super important. And it doesn't mean that somebody else doesn't have boundaries just because you need them a bit stronger or you need your own space. Like, I think that's like a really good to like recognize that like both can be true. Like they could have boundaries and you could need more boundaries than that's just the typical in your family.
I love that you're saying that, and it's always so interesting, and I think so important to have these conversations with different people, right? Because it's like the story that you're telling yourself about this questioner is a little bit different than the story that I'm telling myself about this questioner, and then everyone who's listening gets like this really rich answer depending on the different stories that we're telling ourselves. And it's interesting because one of the things that come to mind is this like extreme like boundary violating situation, just because I've seen so many people make comments about, you know, having family go through their drawers or doing their laundry unasked, you know, and like folding their own laundry or, you know, helping themselves to food in their fridge when there wasn't like an explicit invitation to help themselves to their fridge at any time, you know, and like that food being reserved for like a meal, like just like a lot of like different things where in some people's homes that might be fine, but other people's homes that might be extremely violating. And so I love your idea of having like a very proactive, it doesn't even have to be like a huge conversation, but just like, oh, okay, like this is how things are over here, like kind of offering them information so that way everyone's really clear on like where to put themselves, because it's also hard to be a guest, right? It's hard to host and it's hard to be a guest.
Exactly. And I love that you said that, like, that's hard to be a guest. Like, to even in preparing, knowing that it's hard for the person that's coming to like not know what's allowed, what's not allowed, what's off limits, you know, and like it's hard for a guest to walk on eggshells. So like the more clear you can get by yourself about like what are the things that I need or want or expect, and then communicate those, you're doing yourself a favor. You're also doing your guest a favor. Like, think about yourself being a guest in somebody else's house. You hate to be mess up and to like, you know, be sure and to feel like, oh my God, maybe I did the wrong thing or I upset them, or, you know what I'm saying? So
starving. To be so starving,
exactly.
Right.
So I love that you said that. Yeah, that's really smart. Was there anything else on my head that I wanted to say? No, I like that we approached it like from both angles. I think that that's smart. Yeah, like, so I think that regardless of who this questioner was, I think that both ends are going to be having this question. So yeah, be proactive, have your own spaces, communicate what you need to yourself. Like, I think I wrote this actually on this week's Dose of Clarity. Like, make sure to express what you expect. Like, if you have expectations of other people, of yourself, get clear on those. Like, what is it? You know, so is it that like you're gonna buy yourself 3 salads and don't want anyone touching it? So like, be clear about that, and then like maybe buy extra other things for other people to have, and like make sure it's that you know, like put those away and communicate that those are like, you know, for me on this and this day or whatever. So I think that that's like a super important piece. So I love that this is like a proactive conversation, because like there's enough time to like actually practice making boundaries, getting clear on them, communicating them.
Got like, I think 3 weeks, right?
Exactly. It's enough time to even like start with a new therapist and like figure this out. You really must.
Exactly. It's so much time. One last thing, just to your scenario, if it's someone who is like in their parents' home, then if they have the kind of relationship with their parents, then then that this can work for, like, use your parents, like, ask them for help in like creating space, right? So if someone has to share a bedroom with a niece or a nephew or multiple nieces and nephews or younger siblings, right? Ask your parents and say, like, hey, I know I'm going to need my space and I don't want to get to a point where I'm just going to explode. So can we come up with a good game plan so that way I feel like I have what I need, but I'm also like a really gracious host to whoever is going to be in my room. So maybe they have ideas. Maybe there's a neighbor going away for Yantiv and you can sleep in their guest room or something, you know. So maybe, you know, just having additional minds working at this can really be helpful.
Correct. And if it's not a parent, because I'm thinking like maybe this person is asking for this advice because they don't have a parent that they could go to that's like, you know, enough emotionally safe to like have this conversation with, but like perhaps like it's a friend or a sibling, an older sibling that like understands you. So yes, it's definitely like get as many heads together as you need, and let this conversation be a springboard for whatever, you know, that is. Yeah, I love that. Thanks, Michali. That was short, sweet, to the point. It was so good seeing you again, and we will be back.
We will be back.
Take care. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.